From the 305 to the 303, welcome to TCSP. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Brian and the Casually Serious Band. Yeah, where we was that spooky, scary stuff. Spooky and scary stuff. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We got a few people on the line already, man. Good stuff.
It's October. They're excited. It's Halloween month.
Listen, by the way, I didn't even talk to you about this off the air, but I'm going to remind you on air. Ken, that cell phone idea you had, we need to go with it.
Okay.
Especially with Halloween coming out. So think about that.
Why does that make it different or better?
Because I think people are more mischievous during October. Closer to Halloween, they'll be more inclined to do these things. So
to jump into that thing. Okay.
Oh, all right, shit.
Man. We'll get that going then. Frightening.
Enough of that shit, Tammy. Cut that out.
Spooky.
That boot stuff is horrifying.
Spooky. We just got a black cat a couple weeks ago. Named it Spooky. Spooky.
I remember seeing that. That's so awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yes. So, spooky black cat.
You guys like spooky things? Spooky spiders?
I don't know. I mean, it's Halloween. What can I say? Spiders are cool.
Spiders are cool.
Oh, man.
So, folks, we decided that we wanted to pop one of these guys out. And I don't know if you guys took the moment that it took to realize that the number 5 is being represented by the digits on the person's hand coming up through this top 5 horror movies episode. At any rate, we want to start by saying this stuff doesn't necessarily I want to say boo. This doesn't have to be a Halloween movie per se. It doesn't need to be a movie that has a typical slasher feel to it. It could just be something that scared you. That's at least what we're going with on this anyway, because there's so many movies that have come out from the time I was a kid that could be labeled a horror film all the way up to right now. And those are movies like Contagion, 28 Days Later, shit that's kind of some of the shit gets a little too realistic, and that's what gets terrifying. I think The Purge falls into those categories. So there's also a debate as to what people think a classic horror film is, or what kind of horror film could be labeled a horror film. But for this episode, we don't care. We're going with our list, and that's it.
Right.
But
that's kind of usually how we do it here anyway. It's just there's norms are out the window. It's just whatever, we feel fits into the category of what we're discussing. And this is perfect. This is perfect to start October. It might be a bit early, but I like it. We're going to, this theme will work through October.
Well, we will, we'll do something a little bit more Halloween oriented, I think, as the weeks come. As you know, I've got a bunch of stuff happening over here. We're trying to do a bunch of weird, crazy things that we haven't done before. So at any rate, do you want to go? You want to go your number 5 or?
Sure, man. Bring it on, dude. I'm ready.
All right, go ahead. Call it out. What is your number 5? KenMan, your number 5 horror movie or horror film?
My number 5 horror movie will be Paranormal Activity. This is what I'm going with. And now this is, a fairly, I guess, newer movie. It was released in 2007. It cost a whopping $15,000 to shoot this thing. If anybody watched it, it was just filmed in what they call found footage convention, which is where it just looks like you're kind of watching everything through this footage that is being made by the person who's putting this thing together. And for those of you who haven't seen this before, basically the movie centers on a young couple that have a supernatural presence in their home, and then they set up cameras to kind of document what's haunting them and what's happened to them. And it's just freaky. So this movie for me freaked me out because you're sleeping. Like, you're most vulnerable when you're sleeping. You don't know what's happening around you. You're asleep and you feel safe generally. Anywhere you're going to go to sleep is a place where you feel safe. When you start seeing stuff that's happening while you're sleeping in your bedroom. When you see that video, those images of a person sleeping on a bed, you're imagining that's yourself. And all of a sudden there's something's moving around, which very clearly looks to be like a human shape, working its way around your bed while you sleep. You feel this energy or body or creature, whatever it might be, but you don't see it per se. So yeah, man, this movie freaked me out. It got corny in the way that they tried to put that Hollywood ending to it when this was bought by, I think it was Paramount, and for cheap to this day, I guess it was the highest profit movie ever made for what it was purchased for, to what it went out there. I mean, other than advertising and all that, I'm sure there wasn't much to putting the movie together, and there was no famous actors in this movie at all, and that was purposely as well. So. Right. They've gone on to do so many more, and honestly, I haven't seen much more beyond the first one. That was enough for me to see what they're doing. I see what they're doing. They're coming out with one in 2021, I believe, this year. So they're still kind of pushing this thing out with this franchise of Paranormal Activity. But that very first one got me, and for some reason, because I just am a sucker for a scare, I took it a step further and went out there, actually with Dr. Brian, to see that movie the first time. And afterwards, we decided we would drive out to the darkest possible place we could, which was out into the Everglades. And we went all the way out to the Midway campsite. For those of you that know the Everglades, it's a good distance we drove. And out at the Midway campsite, there's nothing. And there's nothing for many miles in either direction. So it was pitch black. I mean, you can't see your hand in front of your face, kind of black. After we freaked ourselves out watching that movie. Why? I don't know. And then we just got freaked out more and jumped in the car and hauled us home. But
that's why, because that's the fun part of all of that.
It really was.
See how far you can go before you freak out. I get it.
It's like, what's that noise? What's that noise? Let's get the hell out of here. And of course, I slept with the light on, and just whatever I slept that night. I don't know. That movie did a little number on me, man. I gotta say, I dig horror movies. I don't get scared that easy, but I guess the almost realness of it. I understand it's a supernatural thing, but there's still something to that, right? I mean. You believe 100%. What you believe, but there's something to that energy, and there's something there. So that one got me. Paranormal Activity.
Well, let's see. I'm looking right now. What year this came out? All right. So between Blair Witch and this movie, there was about, it looks like 8 years. So I was wondering if that Paranormal Activity was sort of that first wave of popular, bigger Blair Witch style movies.
Right.
Because the Blair Witch was all in that handheld sort of shaky frame. Yep. This is a little bit different. It's actually sort of set up, but at the same time, that I kind of see, it's kind of interesting to see how technology seeped its way into movies, and that's one of the great examples of it, if I'm being honest.
Yep,
I remember seeing that one, but as you said, I don't think I've seen any other Paranormal Activity after that one.
It's funny you said that, because just as you said that, it made me think it wasn't actually Paranormal Activity that I saw with Dr. Brian and went out into the darkness of Midway campsite. It was Blair Witch. And as soon as you said Blair Witch, it reminded me of that. So yeah, so I kind of mixed a couple of them up there. Sorry about that. I didn't see Paranormal Activity with him, but it doesn't really matter. It still freaked me out.
Dr. Brian doesn't watch this, dude. He doesn't give a shit. Doesn't matter.
True. He just makes the music and moves on.
He just moves on. He's just so busy. He's out there touring the world, man.
Give me my proceeds and let's keep on moving.
So since I am a whopping year older than Ken, even though this is on my list out of respect. I've seen a lot of great movies since this movie came out, a lot scarier movies, obviously. But for the time, this movie was pretty freaky. All right, and I'm gonna go with for the obvious reasons. Even as a young person, I found sort of the anti-religion jokes that were made sort of funny. But other than that, it was very gory, and it certainly was terrifying. It was the first scary movie I remember seeing. The other one that made more of an impact is on my list. But there was just something about this movie in particular, seeing it as a young kid, which I guess is sort of the reason why we aren't really allowed to watch these kinds of movies as a kid, because we wind up talking about them when we're 48 years old on our podcast about how it truly did terrify me for a good portion of my life. But, just when it comes down to some of the imagery, and I'm trying to get some right now, I remember not being allowed to see this movie, which made me just want to see it a hell of a lot more. And because we had sort of the gore of the pea soup green vomit happening, and Linda Blair with the head spin and saying the oh so nasty things to the priests in the room. That just needed to be on there. And again, I guess maybe it did scare me, that's for sure, but it didn't scare me, I don't think, as much as the other movies on this list, which is why it needed to be number 5 out of my top 5, not number 1. So I give credit to everybody in that movie. I think, and if I'm being honest, I lump The Exorcist and The Omen in the same sort of as the same movie, even though they're not. So when I think of one, I automatically think of the other. I would have put The Omen on here, but I just think The Exorcist needed to be on there because it's the friggin' Exorcist. So it's and religion is scary in itself. So what a great topic to start a horror film about, to do a horror film about back then, which I believe was 78, if I'm not mistaken. It was terrifying. I saw it obviously not long after it was out because we were able to see the birth of VHS, which is when I was able to repeatedly get terrified and terrorized over and over and over again with the help of the rewind button. So The Exorcist goes on as my number 5 all-time horror film. KenMan, give me your number 4, man. Let's hear what your number 4 is.
So number 4, I am going to go with a fairly newer movie, 2002. I'm going with The Ring. And this is a remake of a Japanese movie. I actually just learned that in this today, I have to say. And a lot of these movies, I guess, are, so I should have realized that. And this movie, though, was also made with no, A-list actors. They purposely didn't want anybody big in this movie. The rendition that they tried to produce from the American filming of this movie versus the Japanese movie, they were really hoping that they would get kind of that Japanese group to jump over and say, hey, we really like what you did here. But most people didn't. Americans loved this movie. It did very well in Europe as well. It grossed an incredible amount of money. Absolutely another movie that just freaked me out. And here we are with something, another a supernatural horror film, if you really want to think about it. But the story itself is what I think really kind of got me with this movie as well.
Yeah,
just the fact about the tape. You watch this tape,
it's
and
so good, man.
You're going to get a phone call and it just says 7 days. And in 7 days, you're dead. I mean, and then to learn what they had to do, you had to make a copy and you had to get somebody else you basically had to kill somebody else to save yourself. And sorry if I gave it away, but y'all should have seen The Ring by now. But still, that
Come on, man, for God's sake, that's not a spoiler. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. That movie is an absolute, just one of these kind of just jumps out at you sort of thing. And it just has its moments in it where you feel like something's going to happen, and it does a very good job of not letting anything happen at that moment, but then it gets you a minute later. Kids, man, Exorcist as well, as you were just talking about, anything with kids, it just freaks me out, man. Kids can be so freaky when they act all just kind of spooky and stuff like that, and just like it just creeps me out, man. So if The Exorcist was that much freakier because it was happening to a 12-year-old, if that was happening to someone else. Look at this little thing. I don't even know if that's a little girl. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's got long black wet hair all the time. It's coming out of TV sets. It's crawling slowly, then quickly, then it's not there, then it's in your face. I mean, and that face, it's just that was in my, like, for the next 3, 4, 5 months in my head, that face, and just it did a good job. And again, I dig scary movies. I don't think stuff like this would have scared me much, but The Ring, it's a good movie, man. It's a good, and the first time around, don't be one of these, oh, no, because you've seen it and you let it, you know what's coming bullshit. You watch it the first time, you see what that movie does to you. It's going to get you, man, if you haven't seen it. I didn't ruin too much, so watch it anyway if you haven't.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's the story. It was a good one, man. It was sort of that classic, I guess, what do we used to call those, chain letters, or where when you go into you go into the bathroom and you say something 3 times, and like that's always like the worst thing in the world to do. Like it's sort of a great play on that, and the fact that it was right. The fact that it was a VHS tape, it's so it made it scarier to people like us. that were sort of in that, passing around VHS tapes to each other, and then, oh, dude, we didn't mean to give you that one. Don't watch it.
Don't
And then
watch
it's like
that.
it's too late. Like you can't do anything about
call
it.
him
Yeah.
to say 7 days.
And there's always, and I remember, and I don't want to go into it, but there was loopholes that I think you could get around in order to not die in that movie. But again, don't overthink it like I did. I'm just kind of that asshole when it comes to those kinds of movies. But I thought that was a great movie. And when it comes to Asian horror films, because there's stuff outside of areas outside of Japan, they're really, really amazing, man. It's just a different kind of terror. I find it to be a little bit more of a pure terror. Obviously, they didn't have to do much more than get sort of a girlish figure that crawls out of a screen that's just dark black in all the places you want to focus on that you can't. It's
Right.
kind of terrifying. But yeah, man, I love that movie.
And they did a lot with those movies too, with a lot of the Asian films too that came out. The Grudge and stuff like that. The Eye. They weren't received anywhere as well as The Ring was. But they do that a lot, I guess, and it makes sense because really at the end of the day, it's that story and the way that they're able to tell that story. And if it winds up being something that you can actually buy into a little bit and it freaks you out, this one just did that very well. It was put together with the right combination of that scare, those quick scares that you want to get that kind of jump out at you scares, and it also made you think at the same time kind of what was happening to try to follow the storyline. And at the end of the day, I mean, the story was kind of neat in what it did and how they kind of wrapped it up at the end. Good movie.
Yeah, they did a great job with it, man. I'd be struggling to find creepier movies than that. Unless, of course, you're talking about my number 4 all-time favorite horror film, Dead by Dawn, Evil Dead 2. If you have not seen this cinematic masterpiece, and again, I don't need to say it any more than if you've already seen High Fidelity with John Cusack and Jack Black, how they go off on a little tangent about, if you haven't seen this movie, I'm just feel sorry for you at this point in your life. And that movie came out like 15 years ago. So if you have not seen this movie yet and have not gotten some of the visuals such as this, or been able to see Ash put his face up against a mirror and then all of a sudden be pulled into that mirror, or to have one of these freaking Dead by Dawn zombies rip this poor freaking girl's head off, and he goes into this absolute monster nightmare acid trip. Subsequently, I should say, the first time I saw this movie, I probably was on hallucinogenics. So yeah, 100% I was. But I was able to watch it multiple times after and be equally as freaked out about it. This was the first horror film I ever saw that blended in maniacal comedy into the middle of it. Just the way he would he'd break that wall and speak to the characters and speak to the audience. Workshed. We got to find the workshed, and he's talking to people, and they didn't really go out of their way to make the scary parts too scary or the animatronics terrifying. They were just sort of rubbery and weird on purpose, and that shit blew my mind, man. I don't know what else to say other than they made an amazing TV series that picks up at the right where the movie ends off, called Ash versus Evil Dead. I believe it was on TNT or USA for a while, and I think they canceled it. I have no freaking idea why, but it was an amazing show with Bruce Campbell, obviously. But all the jokes from this movie was in that TV show. It has a massive cult following. I don't know where I would be right now if in my taste of horror and comedy if it wasn't for Evil Dead 2, man. Have you seen this movie?
Of course, man. This is a great movie. And the use of the stop motion animation, the prosthetic makeup, I mean, they take it to a different level. And it was the beginning of being able to do this kind of stuff in horror movies that added a little bit of that comedy to it as well. So because it was made to look fake, but to still freak you out at the same time. But the stop motion animation, I thought, was the best part of it, because they're able to kind of like make their creatures move independently, do different types of things that you never really saw that put together in a horror movie before. So it is a great movie. It's got what you need with the gore, the slasher, everything to it. So and just the comedic value to it, I think adds something that definitely makes it a true horror film, but still kind of can put a smile on your face at the same time.
I'm trying to find this. If I'm able to get it real quick, I don't know if I will.
Meanwhile, I'll entertain you with scares.
This, I think this right here is what you're talking about. You're so spooky, guys. I'm sorry if
I'm trying to be spooky.
Our host is trying to terrify you right now, dude. There it is.
There it is. Almost you let your head roll right down your arm.
Oh my God. It's just, man, that was during like a very sexy thing too, where something very horrible happens with a tree limb. And oh my God, man, like you need to watch that movie, dude. If you think anything with great graphics is terrifying, you need to watch this movie because it is the worst friggin' graphics but it fits so beautifully.
Yes, it does.
Forever and ever shout out to Evil Dead 2, man.
Good call. I like that one. Man. That was a good call.
So you're number 4.
Am I on 4 or 3? I'm on 3, man. I'm ahead of you, remember?
Yeah, man. 3. Sorry, dude.
This is a popular one, so I think people will know this one, but it definitely freaked me out. It was also at a time, at 10 years old, I think, when this movie came out. Nightmare on Elm Street. Come on, man.
Nice.
Freddy Krueger's a freak. You go to sleep, bad things happen. Again, with the bed and the sleeping and the safe place, man. It just freaks me out. Now I got to worry about what's going to happen when I go to bed. And this movie, again, psychological. At the same time, it's your slasher movie. So you have everything. Moxie, what's up, baby girl? How are you, sweetie? Oh,
she got freaked out because of Freddy. I had to take it off the screen.
Oh, sorry, puppy.
Sorry, Moxie.
Listen, though, but this movie for sure. And there's just these... Freddy himself, but there's other parts of this movie that just stick in my brain, and again, it was right before I'm really getting into going to school and just, getting into junior high school, and you start getting into going down these long hallways in your high school with the lockers, and then there's this scene with a girl in a body bag, and the body bag drags across the hallway, and now you think I could walk down a school hallway the same after watching that? How do I do that? I walk out of a class to go somewhere like between classes and there's nobody there. Now that's freaking scary, man. It's just this movie absolutely got me for sure because this and early, this got me young, I'm watching this movie 12, 13 and absolutely freaked me out in so many ways. But the biggest part of it just was that whole worrying about going to sleep. I had a waterbed. There's a scene in that the guy gets sucked into his waterbed, and then his blood goes flying out all over the room. And
so good, dude.
Blood. It's fantastic. I mean, at the end of the movie, getting pulled through that little part of the window on the door. I had one of those on my door, one of those little windows, And then the mom gets like sucked through the door. It's like I couldn't get near that thing, And I walk out my door, really chill. No, I don't like that. It's all this crazy stuff that sticks in your head that just when you see something and you relate it to what you do every day or whatever. And in this case, it's freaking sleeping, man. I sleep every day. Your meth, there it is. That's just,
so
and now forever it's blood inside of a waterbed. I know waterbeds ever again. I don't think they even make those things anymore, but either way, they shouldn't. And this movie there was many more. Dream Warriors was not bad. Number 3. Number 2 was terrible. I don't know what they did after that. Freddy vs. Jason was kind of funny. But for me, Friday...
Never saw those crossovers.
I watched that one. It was funny, though, not scary. But Nightmare on Elm Street 1, absolutely scary movie, still is. Has a lot of humor to it as I'm older, obviously, and silliness. But that's absolutely a movie that's definitely going to be there in your mind when you're getting ready to go to bed.
Brandy, good call. Salem's Lot. That's a good one. And KenMan was actually talking about Poltergeist too. That's right. Sort of, and I for some reason I want to say that movie came out when we were kids, obviously during Halloween, because I always attach Poltergeist to Halloween for some reason. I don't know why. I don't feel like it definitely wasn't a Halloween movie at all. But at the same time, that was a good one, man. That was a scary one for when we were kids. There's just, I don't know. My list, I had to think about what I put on there. I didn't. We could do a show like the greatest horror films from the 80s, the greatest horror films from the 90s, and you'd have 50 of them from every single, decade.
That's true.
We kind of had to come up with some new ones. Erwin's saying he doesn't know what you've missed, but the answer is always the Omen. Thank you, man. I had that.
He did mention the Omen early, so yeah.
I consider it to be equal to The Exorcist, and it's sort of the same kind of movie. The anti-religion sort of craziness involved and all that. So good call on that.
And what's up, Erwin?
And what's up, Erwin? Exactly, man. Exactly. So yeah, you did. That's your 3. Damn, you're right. All right. Well, listen.
Look at that, man. We're moving right along here, dude. We're gonna see. We've got this new format. We're going for like the 35 to 40-minute shows. Keep you all interested. In and out, man. Boom. Come check us out, and then we're out of the way.
I'm really hoping. I'm hoping that works out, man.
Let's see. We just want to keep you guys interested and not bore you. Yeah, I guess. Sort of.
Well,
a little bit of boring. There's some kind of downtime, a little bit to a show. Give us a break.
A whole bit. But you know what? I was saying at the top of this episode that we didn't need to necessarily have a movie that had anything to do with Halloween. We're just talking about a horror film.
I'm giving you the ones that scared me, man. I'm being straight up. These are the ones that scared. There's plenty more. I'm just telling you that these are the ones that kind of scared me and stick in my mind.
Number 3 on my list scared me and scares me to this day. It sparked a fascination that I had my entire life because of this creature.
Oh God, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jaws. I bring you Jaws as my number 3 horror movie of all time. Now, I don't necessarily need to explain the plot here on this one, and I don't even need to grace you with the humor that was Jaws 3 in 3D with Dennis Quaid and the screaming. All of a sudden, the shark had vocal cords. I don't really know what was going there. That first one, man. Woo! They did a great job with it, man. I just remember not wanting to go in my bathtub anymore. I remember not wanting to go in my pool anymore. That movie screwed me up. Pool. Yeah, it fucked me up pretty good, man. But honestly, I'm not even joking. I know a lot about a lot of different kinds of sharks. I started studying them because I was wondering why I was so afraid of them. And a funny little note is I actually felt bad for this shark because I remember having the soundtrack to this movie on 45. The front side, A side, was the intro. Dun, 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 dun. The other side was the outro after he was brutally murdered by a shot to the mouth with a what the hell, oxygen tank in it, which we've proven to be impossible. This song that was playing. We tried it. Yeah, as he sank to the floor, there was a very sad song, and I remember being a kid and crying listening to that because I was so sad that shark was killed, even though it was running around murdering everybody. It didn't make a difference to me. Between the movie, music, the scene where Quint gets just absolutely eaten from the feet up. Let's see, I'm trying to pull that up right now. Actually,
always looking for pictures.
Yeah, it's those little things that get burnt into your head, because I always said to myself, now what am I going to do if I'm in a situation where there's a shark around me? And the answer is nothing, because you're dead if they want you dead. So, sorry about the blurriness, guys, but yeah, this is the part where he kicks his feet, and when the shark bites down on his stomach, he spits blood out into the camera.
Yes,
and
lovely.
Dude, are you fucking kidding me, man? Are you fucking kidding me right now? That
you get a little bit of blood on the camera, you get the little splatter. Dude, it's lovely. It's awesome.
That shit scarred me for life, dude. What do you think about Jaws, man?
So Jaws, for me, I mean, I wouldn't have really originally thought of it as a horror movie, even though it absolutely is. I get it. But when thinking of horror movies, this wouldn't be where I would go. But that said, it is a movie that scares me to this day. I will not really get into any body of water where I can't see the bottom. If I can't see the bottom, I'm not going in. It's that simple. I build pools. People ask me about dark bottom pools and black bottom pools. I'm like, yeah, they look cool if that's what you like. Personally, I want to know what's at the bottom of anything I get in, even a swimming pool. And it's because of that. And it's because of the scene in Jaws from the shark's angle when he's looking up at the little dangly feet. And that's all you are. You're just these little dangly feet to this monster. And that's what he's looking up. It's just his pick. It's like, tasty chicken wings or something. You just go and you grab them, yum, you pluck them, yum, yum, yum. I don't want to be that vulnerable anywhere. And
oh my God, man.
I am to this day scared of that. And I tell people I'm a Jaws baby. And I tell people like that, this is why I don't do that. Like, hey, we're out here in the middle of the ocean. Want to jump in? No. I mean, if we go closer to the shore and I can see it, it's, 15, 20 feet deep of clear water. I know a shark can still be there. I get it. But I can see the bottom, and I'm generally close to shore. I feel a little safer. I understand plenty of shark attacks happen there too, but I'm not going to totally wipe out water sports. I'm not going where I can't see the bottom, you know? I'll go water skiing out in a bay that's 6 feet deep, 8 feet deep, where I know there's no sharks. I know the movie, they get into the bay and shit like that, but it doesn't happen over here, I don't think. I have like a shark fence in my mind. I'm scared of that movie.
That's the blending.
Reason. I know.
It's the blending of the reality of the animals that are in the ocean at all
and can go anywhere
times,
they want.
anytime, and the reality of the fact that that any of these things that happen in this movie could happen, other than the oxygen tank.
Well, yeah, okay.
Any of the shark-related murders, if you will, which are just feedings, if you think about them from from that perspective, they are just feedings. I don't really know if there's a movie that's anything like it. I know that it was based off of a movie that Spielberg already did that was about a truck that hunted down people on the highway, and the truck was sort of the shark. He eventually reimagined it as that, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, sharks, man. I remember going on my honeymoon in Hawaii, and we were in Kauai, and I was like walking out, and then I was realized, oh, I know exactly where we are. This is where I will find tiger sharks and hammerheads. And automatically I was starting to say the species that were indigenous to the area. My wife's like, great, that's fucking great. Now I'm screwed.
Back onto the sand. Let's have a nice beach day.
Walk back a little bit further, dude, whatever.
That ankle deep water is nice.
Yeah, man. But anyway, Jaws did it to me. And again, we're talking about horror films that are horrific, and they stayed with me for all of my life up to this point right now.
To this day. Yeah. All right. That's a good one too. I like it.
You got number 2 coming up right now.
All right, number 2. All right, my number 2 is this was, I think, one of the first for me as far as my horror movies, and it obviously is a whole franchise here, but Friday the 13th. And Friday the 13th, a slasher movie, obviously, a big part of this was that Jason Voorhees was just cool looking, and we were all into the idea of what this guy was all about. I would say, I shouldn't even say I would say, because this movie came out in 82, so I was 8. But when I finally saw these movies, which would have been a few years later, probably 4 or 5 years later, I was able to watch them, in succession. And in watching Friday the 13th Part 1, it's a great movie, and the setup is awesome in what it does. I'm not saying great movie cinematography-wise. Obviously, it's a cheap horror movie, but it's done well. The story is very solid. It's just that when it gets to be what you're dealing with at the end of the show, it kind of throws you off a little bit with how this one ends. And for that reason, Friday the 13th Part 2 is the better movie. And to take them together, I feel that they just should be together. It's one movie, right. 1 and 2, because you really need to watch them together. You can't watch 1 and not 2, and you certainly 100%. Can't watch 2 if you haven't seen 1. So it's 1 and 2. After that, it really doesn't matter in this franchise. 3 and 4 do go with 1 and 2. 1 through 4 is the best. If you just watch 1 through 4, then you're awesome. 3 is kind of but it still has enough of the gore, the slash, the jump out at you type of stuff that you want from a movie like that to be included in that. I think they wrap it up really well in Friday the 13th for the final chapter. Of course, they come back and make many more. Oh, it was intended to be 13 chapters of this anyway from the get-go, but there was just so many different obviously directors for these different movies, and they started the whole series. It was actually 1980 that Friday the 13th Part 1 was released. So from between 80 and then when they remade the original in 2009, Friday the 13th, they did that. You really saw that. But what was crazy is through all these movies, you only had the same director one time, and that was Steve Miner, who did both 2 and 3. But that's it. Sean Cunningham started it. And then from that point on, it was a different director through every single movie all the way through. Steve Miner doing 2 and 3 was the only one that stayed together on that. And the production team stayed similar because Cunningham was involved with the production pretty much throughout. So that's really where you get a lot of this, you get the will for them to have enough money to come back and have Alice Cooper do the soundtrack for 5, and he's back, the man behind the mask. Terrible freaking song, man. I love Alice, but damn, that song is so bad. But it fits the terrible movie, so it actually all goes together. But you know, again, I mean, it's classic, you know, Jason Voorhees as far as just your slasher guy. You know, Mike Myers, obviously, you can kind of almost interchange them. I know Halloween was ahead of Friday the 13th, but they were completely different movies. Even though your hero, and in horror movies, of course, your slasher is your hero, are similar characters kind of in the way that they move and the way that they work. But you know, here's Jason with Mama, so it's just a beautiful thing here. You know, it's just it's a good movie. It's just, you know, at the end of the day, it's just about a lost boy who just wanted to be loved, man. I mean, that's really all that happened. You know, he just got separated from his mom. He wasn't taken care of properly, and those counselors had to pay. You
guys didn't do shit. You guys didn't do shit about Jason. He was fucking drowning. You think this is fucking some crazy supernatural shit? It's not. You screwed up. You had like one job, and all you wanted to do was smoke your reefer and play in your very short shorts and run around and not care about the kid. And that's what happened.
And doing the sex. They're doing the sex thing. They're not paying attention to the kids.
All the sex, you guys.
It's just, it's terrible. Those counselors had to die, and they had to die the way they died. I mean, machetes through the crotch, and you know, the sex scene where it comes up through the back from under the bunk bed. There's just so many great killings in Friday the 13th, 1 through 4. But you get a lot of it in 2. you really want to watch 2.
You want to watch them back to back.
You do, because you have to watch 1, but you'll appreciate it when you watch 2.
Better kills in number 2. They started up in the ante, and it just all felt better. And I don't know if you folks, I don't know how many of you guys and gals out there are gamers, but let me just say, if you have not played Friday the 13th, the newest video game, which has been out for like 8 years, it's not the greatest game in the world, but my God, is it fun. It is basically one person is Jason, and the rest of you are camp counselors. And you have to work together to pick up different parts of things to get into a car to try and drive away. But the way they have it set up with the superpowers you have, Jason doesn't die. He has no way of dying. Actually, he has one way of dying, but it's almost impossible to get it done. You have to find the mother's sweater and wear it and then lure him somewhere, which is insane. But the video game is amazing, and it's all online. So you all play with different people every time you go in. It's amazing. But yes, Friday the 13th, 1 and 2 need to be you need to sit down and watch them back to back without really forgetting one or the other. They have to be sort of one long movie, 100%.
Definitely.
And no matter what you call it, a slasher, whatever the case may be, it's still a scary movie. It's a horror film. There's a bunch of horrific shit that happens in there. So, all right. Well, my number 2, ladies and gentlemen, if I haven't given you enough hints here in any way, shape, or form, is, in my opinion, one of the greatest horror films of all time with the word horror in it. The Amityville Horror, 1978, I believe, is the original one when that came out. This movie had a very, very lasting mark on me. Me and my brother used to terrorize each other with this movie in a lot of different ways. The all the scary, dude, all the imagery, everything. It really, really messed me up, man. It had me for to the point to where right now I am still involved in at least one Amityville Horror fan page on Facebook.
Wow.
We don't really talk about, I don't get involved in any of the supernatural part of it, because it's my opinion that everything that happened after the murder that happened before the Lutzes moved in was true, and everything after that was bullshit, because the Lutzes were a bunch of black magic practicing, like, acid freaks who probably hallucinated themselves out of a house and realized they couldn't pay for this ginormous house they got cut on. They got a great deal on the house because a family was murdered in it before they moved in there. But they decided to sort of, in my opinion, run with that. But at the time, the fact that the house was haunted, that the walls were bleeding, that the imaginary giant floating pig that only the daughter could see, named Jody, who she spoke to all the time, just the way they framed it. Margot Kidder did a freaking amazing job as Kathy Lutz, and James Brolin was amazing as George Lutz. The rest of the cast was made up of kids, but the house itself became an icon to me and millions of other people. It's not just me, obviously, but the house. I've even asked my wife, when we're looking, we've been looking at houses to move into. I keep asking her, everyone, can I put Amityville windows in this one? No. Like, every single house, I'm like, oh, that would look great. And me and my brother say it all the time too. We want to get a Dutch Colonial because we want an Amityville. But that movie, to this day, if it's on TV, I will watch it simply because I want to remember what it was like to be a little kid and scream and run away from a TV screen. And Amityville was one of those first ones that did that for me.
This is definitely a movie that freaked me out, man. Absolutely. This app would have been on my list if we had lists regardless of what each other had. So this movie, what's fun, not funny, but what's kind of interesting about this movie is Ron DeFeo, who was the guy who killed the 6 people in that house, died in March of this year, actually in prison.
Sure did.
So that's a little twist of what's happened, even just recently with that story. But yeah, these kind of gets me a little bit because this is those northern style homes. I have a lot of my family lives up in that area and have some of these style homes. So it's like now to me they're all just Amityville homes. So they kind of freak me out in my own way. Just kind of when you just step back and you look at them and as from afar, and they just kind of fit that same description, and it brings you kind of right back to watching this movie a little bit. So certainly if it's on a lake, as a boathouse and a pool, if it really matches all of those, then you're really getting freaked out. But this movie, man, that's a definitely was another one of those that got you on that supernatural level. Obviously, the religious theme and just a whole lot of freaky stuff going on throughout the movie that's going to continue to have you just kind of biting your fingernails if you're that kind of person, which I do all the time.
The flies, which, there's a couple of things that had happened that are actually sort of true. If you go deep into the investigation, like my crazy ass has, the flies were part of it, but it had everything to do with the fact that the house was closed down after 6 people were murdered. They went in there and cleaned it as best as they could. Of course, there's going to be some fucking flies involved, and that's exactly what happened. So there was a bunch of stuff that they stretched, and it wasn't until the Lutz family went and spoke to an attorney about the story is when this story started coming up, and that's when subsequently this movie was made. But it doesn't matter if it was made on fake or real pretenses. It fucking stuck with me my entire life, terrified me. It would have been number 1 if not for a more recent horror film taking over as more terrifying to me. So what is your number 1 all-time horror film?
Man, so there's so many out there, but this one in particular, I think stands out because it was just so well done. It's an incredible story. Absolutely is something that it's not a slasher movie, but the character, your hero, man, come on, man. You can't get any better than this. It is The Shining. Come on, man. Come on. You know it. This movie.
So true.
I mean, I don't need to explain it. I know everybody knows what the movie is about. But it's a slower movie. This is something that takes a little bit of time. You have to be introduced to the characters. Jack Nicholson plays an incredible aspiring writer, recovering alcoholic, and he winds up going, of course, hey, it's Colorado. He's in the Rockies, taking care of that Overlook Hotel over the winter time. So he's supposedly got this place to itself. Once the winter storm kind of leaves and everything is kind of all by itself, there's no people around anymore, his sanity deteriorates completely due to influences of supernatural forces from this hotel. As you go throughout the movie, it just, to me, it steps it up with the wacko-ness that's you're thinking as a viewer, because you're wanting to know where this movie goes. You're wanting, if you didn't read this book, if you didn't have any idea what was going on, and you watch this movie, knowing it's going to be a horror movie, you're really wondering what's happening and when are you going to get scared? Just wait, because you're going to get scared. The way this movie, and again with kids, man, it's another one with the long hallways. It is. Yeah. You see it with me, right? These long hallways again. Same thing in a hotel room. Are you kidding me? Those look like 2 men dressed as little girls. This can't happen. You can't have freaky faces like that, man. How do you go to sleep at night with that? You're not thinking everywhere you go, red rom. You got the real girls riding tricycle anywhere. Thank God tricycles don't look like that anymore. All these things, it's just way, way too much. And it steps up even more. When you think you're at that level with this movie, when the scary stuff starts happening, and now you're really getting into it, it takes it to another level again as this movie progresses just within your mind as you're watching this thing. I'm telling you, this is the type of movie, and you gotta be awake. Don't be falling asleep on your couch. Wake up, pay attention, watch this movie. It's one of the greatest performances by Jack Nicholson in any movie he's ever done, much less let it be a movie that's a rewrite, book to screen type of movie, which, as you know, don't do great. We don't have Pet Sematary on here. We don't have It on here. We don't have Misery on here, which are great movies, but, the adaptation sometimes of some of these fantastic books to try to make that work to movie and have it translate to the screen doesn't always work. It did here, as far as I know. I didn't read the book, but from what people tell me, it's pretty damn freaky as well. So this movie, absolutely my number one horror movie for so many reasons, but the biggest one is just the way this movie's done. Perfect actors. Everybody that needed to be in this movie was cast perfectly. You didn't need many, but they worked very well together to give you the scare you needed to get from just watching a movie that took place in one spot, pretty much one hotel throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, you get to really sort of see a downward spiral of Jack, and how he sort of comes undone, obviously. And I've been to the Stanley Hotel. I've been to Estes Park. I know a lot of that stuff has a lot to do with the influences and stuff like that. Really, what it is if you happen to be in an old hotel like that, especially back then, and snowed in, after a very, very long time of that happening, you don't have anywhere to go. It's very easy especially if you're not sleeping well, you start hallucinating. I'm sure there's a lot of fucking things that you think are happening that's not happening. But Kubrick does such an amazing job of sort of stretching this out, like Ken was saying, over a slow burn to where it builds to this end where you don't even understand what the fuck is happening. I remember walking in and looking in at that rabbit and being like, all right, I don't even fucking know anymore, dude. That's it. It's just some weird dude in a bunny rabbit costume, what looked to be like performing some sort of sexual act on somebody in a chair. But I remember that. I remember the old person in the tub. There's just a lot of really messed up shit going on in that movie, and you're damn right. It does belong on that list, man.
The way it's made too. I mean, just and I think it just for the time. Obviously, you watch it today and you're not surprised by what you're seeing, but things like the steady cam and the way that they were able to kind of just glide you through parts of that hotel. You needed to be able to have that because it was such a vast hotel, depending on what room he was in at the time, or the actor at that moment was, as far as where they were at. I just appreciated, I guess, truthfully, like the cinematography that went with this movie, being that you really were just indoors. There was very little shown outdoors. They quickly showed you kind of what was going on, them coming in, a couple of people going out, and you really didn't see outside at all in this movie. It was all inside this hotel, and it's hard for me to imagine they put a movie together. It's close to 3 hours long, and they're able to put that, and make this all kind of make sense, and make one of the greatest horror movies ever.
Yeah, it definitely was one of the greatest horror films ever, man. I don't know, man. It stuck with me for a long time. I think as I got older, it maybe got scarier to me as you start realizing really sort of like what happens to you if you ever get to this point where you're mentally not doing well. You start getting to this point where you're not feeling good, like you start saying to yourself, is there any way you could ever get to that point that he gets to? And then I think as an adult, you quickly realize, fuck yeah, I could get there real quick.
Totally see it.
It doesn't really need to go that. It didn't even need to really go that far for me to get to where I need to get. But
where's my axe? I'm getting an axe.
I think that movie stuck with me for a while too. I don't know. I think maybe as I got older, like I said, I got scarier, and then I started realizing, well, it's kind of freaky, but it wasn't really a horror film. But yeah, it is. It's a horror film because it's fucking horrifying, dude.
It is a horror film, and it's a psychological horror. I mean, which is what we're dealing with a lot of these different movies that I obviously are on my list here. I'm into the ones that kind of mess with your head a little bit. Or just straight out slasher, one of the two.
This movie blends a couple of those things. My number one all-time favorite horror film that is all sorts of wacky, messed up, terrifying, and still follows almost every rule of a good horror film
It
is
does.
Rob Zombie's classic House of a Thousand Corpses. Now, as you know at this point, I'm a huge fan of horror films. Up until this movie, I didn't think there would be anybody that could come out there that could do anything extremely different. I'm obviously wrong, but Rob Zombie is one of those guys that came in and made a movie that was equal parts Texas Chainsaw and what's that one with the mutants and the
Toxic Avenger.
yeah, no. The one
Oh,
where God damn it, I can't believe I'm blanking on it. He took the classic movies and sort of made it his own. The fact that he had sort of all the things that you would need, the fact that you stopped off at the wrong place and decided to stop by Captain Spaulding's house of whatever the hell it was, where he sewed together different kinds of dead animals and put them on display and shit
the
like that.
Museum of Monsters and Madmen.
Right. You follow the Firefly family, who is very sort of Texas Chainsaw, Dr. Death, which
Dr.
was
Satan.
actually
Dr. Satan was
sorry.
the local
That
legend.
guy, he really, really messed me up, dude. There was something
Yep.
about his scenes that I was absolutely terrified by. And at the same time, I remember being extremely confused at this because I was in love with Baby. And this is Rob Zombie's wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, who's in all of those movies. But Baby Firefly was just, dude, and the thing about her is they utilized her as the trap. She was the super sexy blonde girl, and she would lure stupid dudes into the trap of being killed. And that's exactly how it happened. Um, um, it follows basically people pulling off on the wrong side of or in an area they didn't belong, going into this house of oddities, like you said, and then just sort of becoming hunted. And it's pretty amazing at how it happened, man. That Dr. Satan shit at the end really messed me up.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
Falling into the well and then being broken into it, that it played on everything, claustrophobic, running.
Right.
It was shot very close, and it was just, I just think, one of the best horror films I've ever seen. And I love what Rob Zombie did with the Halloween franchise as well. But House of a Thousand Corpses as an original film is absolutely my all-time favorite horror film.
I love that you put this on your list. I mean, this is a movie that I 100% love. This movie. I watched this movie because I'm a fan of Rob Zombie, and I was like, all right, let's see what this guy puts together. I had a feeling it was going to be pretty out there, and it was, and I absolutely love it. I mean, Devil's Rejects, not as good. This particular movie, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And again, it's based off a true story, and this the way that it plays out. Even utilizing some of the same not character names, but I mean real names from the story. He just really kind of obviously played off of that, but the way that he did it, and I think just the crazy characters that you meet, because this is kind of what happens once they kind of go onto this, into this museum, and they're taken prisoner essentially. They keep trying to escape, and all these different things happens to them, and they have to play games to try to stay, or one guy gets his head partially scalped because he doesn't guess Baby's favorite movie star, and the Otis and Tiny get disguised as scarecrows to attack him in the driveway. I mean, all these crazy things happen that while you're watching this movie you just don't expect to happen. You're like, human beings aren't going to do this to other human beings, are they? And they are. And
Chris Hardwick. Chris Hardwick is the guy who gets he gets scalped.
He gets partially scalped, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I mean but it really does make you cringe in the sense of like, they're not going to do this. Like, no, humans don't do this to humans. I feel like that's what I keep saying to myself. That's not real. Oh, that's going to happen. And these are people that just kind of, hey, they just fell into the wrong place at the wrong time. So you're putting yourself in those positions too, because it's not one of these movies that, you're being preyed upon for a certain reason. This could have been anybody.
It's played by Ray Wilson here from The Office fame.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great little cameos in this, and he's obviously another guy. I believe actually he becomes they mix him with like a carp or a fish or something, right? Don't they? Yeah, they take apart his body and mix it with another animal. It's pretty cool, dude.
It's really awesome. I'm really glad you chose that. That's a really good pick, man. I didn't even think of anything.
Thank you, Brandy.
Those have eyes. There we go.
So there you go. This movie was a cross between Texas Chainsaw and Hills Have Eyes because of the mutant family and just all of that shit. Like, thank you so much. I was going to go crazy.
That was the one you were thinking of, though. Yeah, but you're right, though. It does.
And that little tape recorder they have, buried in a nameless grave, buried over and over. I was like, oh my God, enough. Like Rob Zombie had a way of he just figured it out, man. He figured out how to say, I can make this movie and scare people the way I was scared in '76 when I saw Chainsaw and all these other movies. But, these had a visceral reaction to me. My list is, there's things that I can draw off of in current life because of these horror films. So that's why these made my list, man. They scared the shit out of me, man. And as did yours too. So I'll run down my top 5 real quick. Number 5 is The Exorcist. Number 4, Evil Dead 2. Number 3, Jaws. 2, The Amityville Horror. And number 1, House of a Thousand Corpses. And number 5 for Ken was
Paranormal Activity. Number 4, The Ring. Number 3, Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 1 only. Friday the 13th will be number 2. Only 1 through 4, really, but 1 and 2 are the best. And my favorite horror movie is The Shining. Here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny. Yeah, that's just, oh my God, man. Those are some scary movies, dude. Those are scary movies.
So watch those movies. It's October. Pick a couple. If you haven't seen them, grab a couple of these movies. Get the family, sit down, check it out. Scare your 12 to 15-year-old. Probably not much younger than that. I don't know. It depends on the kind of parent you are. It's not up to me to judge you or decide how you parent. Don't care. Do what you like. I watched these when I was 10 or 11. Sorry, Mom. I don't think you knew. Love you if you're watching.
I'm trying to figure out. I remember watching these when they came out, which was way too young for me to be watching these movies.
I think I watched them a little too young as well. But that's why they scare me still to this day, because it kind of brings me back to when I was young and really scared. So even if I watch the movies now and they're not as scary, they still kind of bring me back there to when I was younger and was frightened by them. So they have that kind of scare factor going. Look at this. We still did a big hour on this thing, man.
I know.
When we try to go short, we can't. Hope you all liked it, though.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
I was going to say, I appreciate everybody who came in and commented and actually talked with us. It's always a treat to have that happen.
Yes, it is.
Any honorable mentions? I'm glad you asked, Tammy. I have one.
Yeah. Okay, I got 2. I got one we mentioned, but okay.
There's a movie called High Tension. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. This, again, was not an American film. I believe it was a French film. About 2 friends who go on the road and insanity ensues. One of the greatest twist endings I've ever seen in a horror film. And again, this wasn't so much a horror film as it was sort of a psychological twisted thriller with murder involved and fucking terrifying shit. But yes, go see High Tension. I've never seen, well, I think it's actually this, I don't know if it's the same version, but you can audibly see that these folks are not talking very good English throughout it. But check it out. High Tension is a great psychological horror film. Check it out.
I just have 3. I'll mention them real quick. They're all people you've heard of every single one of them before, but these didn't make my top 5, but they're still good. Poltergeist, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and again, because it just freaked me out at the time. The other one would be Halloween, because I still love Mike Myers and appreciated the Halloween, and of course, just everything that went with that slasher movie. And Candyman, man. Candyman freaked me out, I got to say. So that came out in 92, right? I was leaving high school, and that movie just freaked me out a little bit as well. So I didn't quite make the top 5, but still a freaky movie.
Ooh, I've got another one, Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty, and again, I what I was looking for as a fan who grew up watching the greatest horror films that were ever alive and ever came out, I was looking for something different. I was always looking for something that no one had ever thought of. And that Jeepers Creepers did a great job of mixing sort of that Jeepers, that happiness of that music mixed in with that creature. Yeah. And I thought it was actually a great concept, the way they put it together.
And then they made Leprechaun after that to try to make it.
Oh my Lord.
which is terrible. Don't watch Leprechaun.
Yeah, do not. I mean, check it out, dude. If you're real baked, don't even do that. It'll screw you up. It's a horrible Irish
watch
stereotype.
one of these other movies we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with TCSP and our top 5 horror movies episode. We'll be sure to do something Halloween based. I am a Halloween baby. I was born on Devil's Night, so we might do something around that time. I don't know, but at any rate, thanks for hanging out, guys. We love you so much, and we'll see you next time.